And we are live. Welcome to today's podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Having an interview with Mr. Finance Nathan Issa. Just waiting for him to come through and join the podcast. So as soon as he does that, we will start with the interview. Okay, there you go. Mr. Money in the Bank.
Hey man, how's it?
Nah, man, it's good, man. Awesome. Nice to see you, man. How are you doing?
I'm alright. I'm alright. Can't complain. Can't complain.
Nah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Today's show is brought to you by the YouTube channel called African Youth, Best Version of Yourself, and brought to you by hashtag JDTW, Just Do the Work. So we're in with Nathan. He has come through to our show before, and it was a good show. We learned a lot from him as far as finances and all of that is concerned, and how he made it to leading a finance team. Nathan, man, today's show we're just gonna talk about resilience. We're gonna talk about the ability to bounce back from bad situations. And you have a
Right.
life story that you can share to us without telling us about or revealing the name of the company you are working for. But um, I'm gonna take you through a timeline, and we'll take it from there, right?
All right.
2019 November, you have worked well. 2019 November, you have worked hard during your internship. You have worked hard in your position in the finance team. 2019 November, you are leading a finance team of a company. You are the boss in the finance department. We listen to you. You are putting the shots. November, you get a message from management that the company is considering merging with another company or closing down. Tell me what was happening in your headspace when you got that,
Sorry, what was happening where?
in your headspace when the announcement came about that the company is looking to merger with another company or it
Right.
might close down.
Um, I think, I mean, from my standpoint, panic was never the first result for me. I think I was always thinking of, okay, well, how do we best go about, getting
Yes.
out of the situation that we find ourselves in? So I was looking more and focused more on the merging side of things happening rather than the company closing itself. Because I think from what we knew at that point, it looked promising. So I think I was more focused on that and looking at the opposite, the positive outcome from that, rather than a negative outcome. So, but I mean, being human, there's a small part of you that wonders what would happen if the company had to close down. Where do you go
Yeah.
from where you are now? And how do you deal about it? And I think that also being the first time that I would find myself in that position,
Yeah.
made it just a little bit more, or just gave me a little bit more to think about because of it. But largely, I was just more focused on, a more positive outcome than negative.
Wow, that's good. And November, and towards the end of November, you get the news that the company won't be merging and that the company will be closing down.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how did all of that change as far as you hoping for the best? And now it's confirmed that there won't be any merger taking place, but the company will be closing down. Now, what was happening as far as your personal headspace and knowing that you've worked so hard to get to that position where you are leading a finance team, and then now that you have done so much and you are still working on improving, confirmation is made that the company will be closing down end of 2019.
Right. Um, I think in that situation, it's a completely different situation. So it's not will it happen? It's more of it's happening. So now your thinking changes a bit, because now you have to think, you step into survival mode. Because I mean, we have to look at the fact that we are still fairly early in our careers. We are, taking up, some debt in terms of, getting a car and stuff like that. So there's a bit more attached to it, and there's a bit more worry to it. But I have to be honest, I'm usually the type of guy who, whatever the circumstance, the first thought is, how do we get out of it, right?
Yeah.
In this case, it was a slightly more new circumstance, and challenge that I found myself thinking about it a little bit more than just, okay, let's get up and see what we can do about it, because that one hit home, because I had to worry about certain things.
Yeah.
But I think I gave myself about a week, before I really accepted it for what it was, and that it was going to happen. It's going to happen. That me being in that state, it's just not going to help me. I need to
Yeah.
start thinking about, how do I put things together? How do I put things in place in order to, to make sure I survive this wave
Yeah.
that is coming our way. And I think the other worry, I think what made it a bit more worrying, was the fact that this happened right at the end of the year. So you are wondering, you know, where do you get a job in December? How do you get a job in December? And you start thinking to yourself, it's probably going to take me, what, 2-3 months to find a job, if you take into account, November, December, Jan, because Jan companies are only opening. So employment, getting employment then is not guaranteed as well. So all of those things are now, going through your mind, and you are trying to just find a way to survive that wave. So ultimately, I think after a week, I literally just started planning. I started looking at, what needs to be done, what do I need to put in place, what monies do I need to put in place to ensure that I make it through what I had in my sort of planning, a 3 months period where, I'm going to be searching for a job, and, just make it through that. So yeah, I would say I think the first week was tough. I think during the period of searching for a job, which took about 3 months or 2.5 or something like that, but there were periods where you got a little bit frustrated because, it just wasn't happening. But yeah, man, these was a time in life where it was just another curveball, another opportunity for you and I to learn about life. And yeah, man, and I actually I'm very appreciative of that challenge, because it has made me a much stronger person, and I have a much stronger character going, forward in life.
Wow. And towards the end of November, you get confirmation, you start applying for opportunities, hoping that at least by beginning of 2020 Jan, you'll have landed a job, right?
Yeah,
And it does not happen. 2020 Jan happens, it's a new year, and you still haven't landed a new job. Now,
yeah,
you lost a lot of stuff that you have bought for your place and started to start building your life. And take me through that. Now that you realize that you haven't landed that contract beginning of 2020 in Jan, then what was
yeah.
the plan and how did you go through about that?
Um, Look, you at times like this, you realize very quickly that you have to make some tough decisions. You have to
Yeah,
to
yeah,
to to sacrifice certain things,
yeah,
and that is all for the good of ensuring that you survive.
yeah,
Um, in my case, I was fortunate enough to be within the province where my family is, so I
yeah,
had to think about it. So I had to think about, do I continue paying rent and with no income coming in, or do I rather save that rent that, will enable me to go on for longer and buy more time as far as finding a job. So it was a very tough decision. And I had to consider obviously selling certain things because, where do you put all of those things? There's quite a few things. So yeah, man, I just made the decision to sell everything that was, big enough too big for me to carry, and just keep the small stuff and move back home and, start picking up the pieces and just start over and start rebuilding. I think from, my time of living for the 25 years that I've lived, if there's anything that I found hard, especially with people, is having to rebuild, right?
Yeah.
So, getting to a certain point and having to go back a few steps to go forward again, seems to be one of the hardest things people find to do. But yeah, man, it was something you and I had to do, but it was for the good of making sure that, one, you had cash flow, even though there wasn't money coming in, but you had some capital in place to keep you going for a certain period of time.
Wow. And you are in this nice apartment, right? And where there was furniture and everything, and just this one day, there's nothing. It's empty. You have cleaned it out, and there's nothing. It's empty. It's cold, and now was it the time where it really hit you that, okay, it's time to rebuild now? It's time to start, not necessarily from zero, but it's time to start over again. Taking that moment and going back to that moment where you are standing because there was no chair to sit on, and thinking, man, I got cleaned out. There's nothing here, and this is it.
Look, I remember that day like it was yesterday. In fact, I remember just before I left, you sent me a video of yourself, of your apartment, and how you cleaned that out. And so it sort of just made me realize, oh man, snap, this is going to happen to me in the next few days. So yeah, it was a reality check. It was a moment of, no, it's really happening. But I think at that point, I think I already went through the phases of this, and to a point where I accepted it for what it was, and I was ready to restart, right? I was ready to restart. I was ready to rebuild, whatever it took. So if it meant I had to move out to just gather everything, put everything in place to get back to that point, then so be it. So it was a bittersweet moment. I think I looked at it more like, I think we had this conversation. We got to a point where we accepted it for a new beginning rather than a calamity, So yeah. So now, so it was hard, but it wasn't something I dwell on and had sleepless nights over now.
Yeah. And then thereafter you go home, and now you're with your family. Now the work still continues, whereby you need to send your applications through for new posts. And take me through that phase. Like you are sending applications through, you are getting calls, you are going to interviews, but you are still not getting, that job. And it was day after day, day after day. In fact, you can tell me how many applications do you think you sent out during that period when you were hunting for a job?
Well, I think that's the other thing as well with applying. I think it was a learning process in applications that we were sending. I think we started applying from November. I would say probably over 200 applications, right? That had gone out from my side. But in that process, I started learning a few things about applications, your different sort of avenues of applying. It's important that you understand how it operates, for you to know and have a better idea of how to go about it, right?
Yeah.
So the biggest thing that I saw and I could not understand was, and this also, happened with me trying to find my first job, was how is it possible? How is it possible to send out over 200, 300, 400 applications and you're going to get one response or two responses or interviews, right? It just didn't make sense. It just didn't make sense. And I really wanted to understand how the whole online application works. And I think towards the end of our time at our previous company, we had some recruiters come in. And I think we all asked them questions about how does it really work when you apply online? And they basically told you, or told us, it's based on filters, right? So, they would post a job, but in order for them to pick out a CV, they would have to filter certain words that matches requirements of their client for your CV to pop out. And so you think to yourself, well, there's millions of people applying. And how are you going to be one of those people that are going to be chosen by a system, not even a human being choosing a CV, and looking at it and saying, this is a CV that matches, but a system that is looking for words to match you up with a job. So that already, made me think of, what do I do different? Because it's just not going to happen like this. It's just not going to happen. And I can tell you now, I have a job now, and that job, or any interview, in fact, did not come from my online applications. It did not come from that. It came from actually being directly in contact with a recruiter. So a recruiter knows you, right? So you make the effort to put your CV out there directly into a person's hand, that they will look at your CV, not some system choosing who, is going to be selected. And I think there's a few things, and I always tell this to my friends or people I speak to: do not depend on online applications. I think the one thing I always did was pick up the phone and contacted recruiting companies directly, and spoke to them, had a conversation with them. Listen, you could literally have an interview over the phone just by making a call. You could literally land a face-to-face interview just by making a call like that. Whereas your online just has no guarantees at all, right? So you need to be intentional about what you do when it comes to applying. Applying online is very easy, but you need to make the effort. In fact, some of the recruiters that I spoke to say they want to see someone who is willing to make that effort, who is willing to, to really show that they want the job. To simply apply online, they're basically saying it's not enough. It's not enough. You need to push yourself out there. You must put yourself out there.
Yeah. And the recruiters you spoke to, you did have an interview with them, which, just to explain to the viewers, a recruiter is a separate entity that works for a company. So when a company needs talent, people to employ, they go to the recruiters, they look and search for those people. So you went to interviews with recruiters where recruiters were interviewing you to find out more about you. And in addition to that's just halfway done. You had to now be transferred to having interviews with the actual companies that are looking for the person they want to employ. Now, take me through that process, right? What did you learn about how your CV looks like, the layout and all of that? And in addition, what did you learn about how to approach the interviews, Because I know a lot of people, what they're doing, they're going online, they're memorizing things, and then they they go to an interview and they say exactly what they've read online, so that they can land a job, say these nice things and then you can get a job. But on your
Right.
case, how did you prepare for those two things? Your interview
Right.
and ensuring your CV is in the correct format and all of that.
Right. So the CV, it was a progressive thing, so it changed a few times based on, the research that I did on how a CV structure should be. And I think that did have a certain level of impact later on. Listen, man, what I learned from recruiters, especially, the one thing they said was, with your experience, just be as detailed as possible of the experience that you have. Everything else, make it as short as possible. Put it in a corner of your CV if you must. But your CV on its own must be as detailed as possible. Your duties of your previous job, your achievements of your previous job, the things that you did that stood out. Those are the things you must make sure that you mention that in detail. It must be in detail. That is very important. It's very important. For example, you can't just say you did cash flows, right? Say you did cash flows and you did monthly cash flows, you did quarterly, whatnot. So be very detailed about, what it is that you did. So that's very important. The structure of a CV, it's not the most complicated thing. With a little bit of research, a little bit of conversation with the right people, you will get to the right CV. It's not the most complicated thing. I don't think you need to pay for your CV to be what it needs to be, because there are people out there who says, pay a certain amount for your CV to be done a certain way, and I just never believed in that. So I did my research, I spoke to the right people, and I got my CV to where it was supposed to be. So I would advise that people do the same. Give it time, put in the time, put in the effort. So that's the one with the CV. As far as interviews as well, I think I'm going to start by saying it's not the most complicated thing. I think the problem here is we all think an interview is uniform to everyone. So, someone will tell you about this is what needs to be done in an interview. It just won't work with each and every interview. Every person that interviews you is very different. All right. And you cannot prepare for an interview by memorizing answers. It's just not, it's not going to help you. It's not you. It's not you answering. It's the words that you prepared, based on what you've seen somewhere or someone has told you. It cannot be that. My way of looking at an interview is very simple. So I look at an interview as the interviewer is just another person, right? So the interviewer is going to interview me, but I'm ultimately going to interview the interviewer. That's the mindset I go with. I do not go there to just be interviewed, right? Because if you go there with the mindset of, I'm going there to be interviewed, that's the only focus. You are waiting for them to ask you a question, right? If you're going there with the mindset of, I'm also going there to interview, what you're doing is you're opening a platform for dialogue. You're opening a platform for a conversation rather than a Q&A.
Yeah.
Right. And interviewers are looking for someone who is interactive, not someone who just gives answers based on the questions that they asked. Right. And answers should not be, answers that you practice to get off the internet. It's not going to help you in any way. I can promise you now, they can tell if you're being fake. They can tell if these answers are answers that you practiced, right? You already know what you're capable of, right? You already know the type of person you are. You already
Yeah.
know the type of work you've done. You already know, your level of effort when it comes to work. Those are the things that you know about yourself, and it should come out naturally. You don't need to lie. You don't need to make up a story to try and impress an interviewer. If you go into an interview, there has to be some level of connection between you and the person who is on the other side. If it's not there, maybe that job is just not for you. You do not need to go into an interview and make up a whole story about your experiences and what you're capable of. You need to go there as natural as possible. Be yourself. Try not to be as nervous. You must look at that person as another person. You must look at that person as another person. You must look at that person as a person you're going there to have a conversation with.
Yeah.
Right? Not just to answer questions. No. You need to go there. I will tell you one thing. I mean, I've gone to, in this period, between November and December, there wasn't really any interviews there. I think towards the end of Jan, beginning Feb, that's when the interviews started coming in. And I can tell you, I was at my interviews 30 minutes before my interview started. People who were in before me would come out about 15 minutes before I was supposed to start. So they ended early. And I would walk in some of these interviews, I'd walk in 15 minutes early and still leave. After the time that was set for my interview. So if my interview was supposed to be an hour, I'd be there for an hour and 20, 30 minutes. The reason is simple. Your interview can end literally in 20 minutes. Literally, your interview can end in 20 minutes. But you cannot allow that to happen. You cannot. No one is going to remember you after 20 minutes. No one is going to remember you. Right? You need to go there and have a conversation. You need to sit down there. You need to ask every question that you possibly can about the company, about the cultures, about each and every single thing. And I always say this actually, you need to bring the second interview into your first interview. You need to force it to happen. You must force it to happen. The second interview it's half repetition of your first, and it's just, I don't know, some really extra questions that they're going to ask you, right? Bring the whole package. Like I said at the beginning of this interview question, you need to go there with the mindset of interviewing them as well. It makes a big difference. Trust me on this. It makes a very big difference.
Wow. And another thing I want to ask you is, in the process of applications, and you get mails and calls that you are being invited to an interview. I mean, it's COVID now. A lot of people are losing jobs, and they're gonna have to go to the hunting market where they're looking for new jobs, right? Yeah. How many scams did you encounter, and what kind of scams are there that you encountered during this process?
No, I've encountered. Well, listen, man. From the very beginning, I think one of the first scams I saw came from you. On when you applied. I mean, you get emails about sales positions that you never applied for, and stuff like that. Like there was just so many. You must pay some sort of money to get certain documents in place, and I think that was the most common one from my side. There was quite a few emails of those kind of scams that came through. But sure, I think the faxing one as well is a scam. I think you would know a few things about that. But yeah, man, those are the scams that I experienced. So, my advice to people now, and I know people are going to be very desperate, and I can promise you now, people actually do end up going to these places, paying money, and being, I'm sorry for the English, but screwed over, ultimately. So do not let your desperation take the best of you. No job is going to ask you for money. No legit job is going to ask you for money. It just doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. Do not do it. Like, just don't do it. You're already looking to make money. You do not want to lose any cent unnecessarily. Do not do it. So be very aware. If something doesn't look right, there's always people around you that you can speak to. You know, just get some sort of insight on if it doesn't look right, it's probably not right. You know, I think the common rule here is, you know, whoever is employing you, if they see your CV, the first thing they do is call you. They will call you. You know, they will call you. And if they can't reach you, they will send you an email telling you, we tried getting hold of you. Let us know when we can get hold of you when you're available. Right? They will talk to you. They will not ask you to send them money. They will not. It just doesn't happen. Do not do it. Do not do it. It doesn't matter how hard it is, how desperate you get. Just be patient, stay prayerful, and stay pushing. That's the only thing you can do.
That's nice words, man. And now you you back again in the game, and you working again for a good company. And what's your advice now when we wrap up this show? What's your advice to young people? Because you're still young, right? You turning 26 this year.
I was still young, man.
Yeah, that's what people don't know, right? And again, guys, go to the YouTube channel, go check it out. We've had an interview with Nathan. He has talked about how he made his way to the top. So, I mean, I like talking to young people and finding out how they made it, you know. And this should be not a motivation. I'm not a motivational speaker, but this should encourage you to do something about your situation. And Nathan, like I was saying, as we're wrapping up this show, what's your advice to a lot of young people who are gonna go through the same process, whereby now they're getting letters that because of COVID, their jobs are no longer there and they need to make plans, you know? And what's your advice to the person who's now broken down? You know, you haven't been in a situation where you lost all your assets, your furniture, the things that you have bought, you know, trying to build your life. You've lost all of it and you had to rebuild again. I mean, it required some mental strength for you to go through all of that. Now, what is your advice to, especially young people, right? Especially young people, and who are trying to make their way, you know, out of university into the job market. You know, what is your advice to those people? And in addition to that, what's your advice to the people who still have their jobs, the young ones, you know, as far as saving money up, as far as making sure that wherever you work, you leave a mark, you work to improve things, you don't work for a paycheck. You know, what's your advice to those people?
Right. I think you know, the first thing, and you mentioned it there, is mentality, right? There's a quote that says, your mindset is your biggest asset, right? That quote is very significant. It's a very simple, but very significant. I think everything we do starts with our mindset. Everything we do is a consequence of a choice, right? It's a consequence of what we're, you know, in what mind state we find ourselves in what mindset we work towards. Going through what we've gone through, the biggest thing there was the mindset, was the one thing you can control. Losing your job is not something you can control. It's, you know, it's if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. In a case like this, you know, we worked hard, we did what we could, you know, we got into positions that we got into, but at the end of it, we had no choice. It wasn't in our control what happened. But in that time, the only thing that you have control of is your mindset. Because if you lose that, if you lose power over your mind, that is where it all collapses for you. Because without it, you cannot move forward. Without it, you can't make a decision. Without it, you can't pick yourself up in the morning and say, I need to go and do what I need to do. So you cannot lose control of your mind. So try your level best. It's not going to be easy, and I'm going to make that very clear. It's not going to be easy, but you must try your level best to ensure that you work on your mindset. A positive mind is what is going to get you to the next bus stop, right? That's what that's what it's going to do. It's what's going to wake you up in the morning to ensure that you do what you have to do. Because I mean, the opposite of it is simple. If you don't have that mindset, nothing is going to change. Nothing falls in your lap. It just doesn't happen. You know, how you and I got into the positions that we got to within those years, I think 2 years, it was all down to the fact that we were willing to go beyond the scope of work that we did. You know, we always looked at the bigger picture. We never looked at, you know, we just have a job to do, let's do that and get that done and that's it. No, it was the mindset. Our mindset was off. We need to be in a space where we are, I wouldn't say irreplaceable, but a pillar of the company. If the company lost me today, you know, and I know they will feel the pain, right? You want to be that valuable to the company. And that's what we always work towards. And I say this, it's very important because this is always going to follow you wherever you go. Where I have a job now, it's because of what I did. It's because of the reputation I built, right? It's because of that. It's because of the mindset I've always had. A negative mindset is not going to get you anywhere. If I had a negative mindset towards my job, I probably would still be looking for a job today. You know, I probably wouldn't be managing a finance department, and it would have been harder for me to find a job today. You know, and that is just the reality of it. You need to be in a position where you stand out. That, I cannot stress how important that is. You must work towards being a valuable asset to a company. So in a time like this, when you have a job, you know, in a crisis like this where people are losing their job, you know, if you think about it logically, if a company had to rebuild and restructure, who are they going to keep? It's a very simple question, and I'm sure you have the very simple answer. Who are they going to keep?
Yeah.
You're going to keep those who went out of their way. They're going to keep those who chased knowledge. They're going to keep those who wanted to do more than just what they were doing. They're going to choose those who wanted to stand out, right? If you are not one of those people, the likelihood of you losing your job is very high. It's very high. You know, because in a time where they have to restructure, they need strong minds. They need willing people. They need people who are willing to go beyond, you know, the extra mile. They need those people. So my advice to young people or older people even, you know, in a time like this, continue to do your job beyond your expectations. You know, just continue working on your mind, ensuring that you have a positive mindset, you have a positive approach in everything that you do in your workplace. It's very important. It's going to go a long way. Trust me. You know, myself and Lebu, we're still, you know, in a place of building or rebuilding. You know, because I mean, you know, we were at a point where we were quite ahead and took a few steps back, but we are on a path where we are rebuilding and growing still. The skills that we had built in our previous companies, just because we lost those jobs, those skills are not gone. They're not gone. They're still there. They're valuable, right? So even when you start rebuilding, it might take you, not even might. In fact, it probably will take you a shorter time than someone who didn't do the work like that, you know? So yeah, man, my biggest advice is continue having a positive mindset, continue doing the work, continue being intentional about the things that you do. And just keep the faith, man, and just keep on driving this train forward.
No, that's good, man. It's good. It's good. You said some important things which I hold dear, and one of them is continue doing the work. You know, I keep on telling people this, and you gotta have to you gotta want to do the work. You're gonna want to do something about your situation. You're gonna want to improve yourself. You're gonna want to challenge yourself. You know, and I like what you said about mentality. Listen, to those who are watching, your mind can be trained, right? It's gonna be hard in the beginning to teach yourself to go extra mile without
Yeah.
being paid for it, but sooner or later it's gonna be part of you, and once it's part of you, you're gonna see the value as time goes. Because,
Yeah, it's
like I
not gonna
said,
go anywhere. It's not gonna be
exactly,
anywhere. It's not gonna
like
go
people,
anywhere. It's gonna be
yeah,
something that you're gonna drive and carry with you for the rest of your life. And people, you will
exactly,
always be noticed. You will always be noticed. You will always be a value and an asset. Always.
always, always. And the thing is, most people are not doing this, and that's why you always stand out. And in addition to that, money will be a byproduct of you doing
Exactly.
that work. You know,
Exactly.
I mean, we we are making money, you know, and you do get the fruits, you know, of the seeds you sow by doing the work and go extra mile, because the money will be a byproduct one way or the other, you know. And and I would say the same thing to people out there: keep pushing, keep positive, because at this stage you have two options: either be think negatively or think positively, and whatever energy you want to connect to will will yield fruits in your life, right? And I like what you say, you know, keep working on yourself, keep working on your mind, and keep pushing. And I don't know if you have any last words that you want to say to the guys or ladies who are watching.
Yeah, and I think one thing I think is very important is, and especially in the day and age that we find ourselves, is that people are so focused on chasing success,
Yeah.
um, rather than chasing knowledge and strong foundation. Success, like money, is going to be a byproduct. Success will follow you based on the strong foundations and knowledge that you have in place. So focus on that. Focus on building a mind and knowledge and skills that will get success to follow you rather than you following success. Because we tend to lose ourselves in the pursuit of success, that we try to rush things, that we try to live up to society's standards, and that's one thing I've realized in this day and age that we find ourselves in. People are living for what people think and not for what they want for themselves and not for themselves. So it's very important that you keep that in mind. Focus on chasing the things that matter, and success will come as a result of it. Do not chase success.
Ah, man. Those are deep words. Those are deep words. Those are deep words, man. Now, Nathan, thank you. Thank you for coming through to our show. Ladies and gentlemen, what I'll do is I will leave this show on my wall, but in addition to that, I'll move it to my YouTube channel. It's called African Youth, the best version of yourself, right? There's some great content there as to how to make better choices with your life and level up. So with that being said, see you in the next video. And Nathan, thank you for coming through again, and peace.
Now, thank you for having me, man.
All right, cheers, man.
Cheers.